This is your Daily 5 for Wednesday, November 26th, 2025. One thing that you could almost bet money on is that any year where there is a new piece of iPad hardware or that there is an OS update that is more than just security fixes or minor things, that you are going to see articles, videos, opinion pieces, podcast reports that say that Apple needs to fix the iPad Pro, that it's not up to the potential of the hardware, and when are they going to get around to making it into what it should be? Now, putting aside the phrase should be what it should be, being something that you could change every fourth person you ask, if not every single person you ask, this is something that I do think Apple is partly responsible for where this continuing confusion and desire for the iPad to be transformed has come from. Because, as I complained about at the time, Apple ran some boneheaded ads where they were having people saying that the iPad was almost the next thing after the computer, that you no longer needed a computer because the iPad could do it all. The one that was most well known is where an older individual came out, a parent or a grandparent came out and asked this young child what they were doing with their computer, which was the child was using an iPad. And the response from the child was, "What's a computer?" Indicating that Apple was trying to tell you that an iPad was the replacement for a computer for the younger, more intelligent, more with it people, and that only older folks would really need computers. That was a dumb move, which they've clearly backed away very, very quickly from. You don't see anything like that anymore. But I think it also did, to some degree, contribute to this idea that some people have that the iPad is a secretly locked computer that Apple just needs to unleash and make it into the computer they think it should be, even though what they would be describing there is a convertible laptop, like a yoga-style laptop, which from many, many different reliable reporting sources is something Apple has no interest in. Because if the iPad suddenly became, quote-unquote, a computer, it's a convertible MacBook then, isn't it? What else would you call it? And the fact that, again, we see people saying, oh, they're going to add a touchscreen to the MacBook anytime, which there's no indication they will, or they should really pursue a convertible version of it where the detachable screen that becomes a tablet, which, again, there's no real sign they're interested in outside of R&D stuff. This is the biggest thing that I think is just hanging some people up. Because all along, it has felt to me, and it certainly seems if you use an iPad Pro regularly, that Apple sees this thing as a third device for people who want to do more than what you could do on an iPhone, but do not necessarily need the full horsepower and power user features that a MacBook or a laptop would give you. And in that space, the iPad Pro functions very well. And so this idea that they just aren't aware of what they need to do with the iPad Pro, I just don't get it. I think it's a legacy mentality that assumes that the idea for this device is something that Apple just doesn't seem to be all that interested in making. And so there is not some secret key to making the iPad Pro into the magical, tablet computer everybody wants. Because if that's what Apple wanted, they would have done it by now, easily. I know some people will point out that there's some kind of hardware limitations. Okay, they could have revised that. Are you really telling me you don't think Apple could have re-engineered the hardware to make it possible? Or redone iPad OS to make it where it would function the same way? Really? That's not something you think they could do with a piece of hardware and an OS that they own top to bottom? They could do it if they seriously wanted to. The fact that they haven't should tell you something. And I don't know if it's just to generate views and clicks and whatevers, or if people are just not putting the dots together, and I am by no means any kind of genius, but it just seems to me that at this point in the iPad's life, well, and particularly the iPad Pro's life cycle, if Apple was envisioning this thing as being a computer replacement, they would have made it happen by now. So either it's not something that they think people actually want, or the sales figures do not seem to support the actual need for. And until that changes, I don't see anything happening that's going to make the iPad Pro any different tomorrow than it exists today. So I don't know if this is just delusional or it's clickbait material, but if you're waiting for the iPad Pro to become a computer, I think you're going to be waiting a very long time. Later.